Hey again, welcome to Ballin with Roy and Edwyn. I am Roy S. Johnson, and this is my son, Edwyn. How you doing today, Edwyn? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So since Edwyn was a little thing, we've been discussing and debating sports and life. And so now that he's gotten a little older, we just thought we'd bring it to you, a little intergenerational chat, a little old school, new school, relating sports and life and talking about what's going on in the sports world. So before we get started today, I know both of us just want to wish get well to Deion Sanders, who had foot surgery and had two toes amputated. Now, apparently, this was a long-standing foot injury. And if you know anything about athletes, particularly professional athletes with long careers, they often have lingering injuries. This was very dangerous. This was blood clots, and as we all know, blood clots can be deadly. Apparently, they run in his family. So we really want to just wish him, get well, and hope that he's able to get off the scooter, get out of bed, get off the scooter, and be healthy and continue to be able to coach at Jackson State and really do the things that he's doing to elevate not just Jackson State, but the SWAC and HBC football and HBC sports. So get well, Neon Dion. Also, we want to send our prayers to the family of Katie Meyer, the dynamic soccer player at my alma mater, Stanford, who lost her life to suicide earlier this month. The memorial for her is this weekend. We just want to say to anybody, if you're having any kind of suicidal thoughts, if you're having any inclination of that, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That is at 1-800-273 8255. You can also text home to 741-741. So again, our prayers go out to Katie, to my entire Stanford family. Just wish them strength in their grief, and anyone again out there who is thinking about that, don't forget to call 800-273-8255. All right, Evan, a lot going on this week. I mean, man, every day, a new headline, a new thing, particularly in the NFL. You think it's the off season, but it's the on season. So let's start out with this apparent trade. Russell Wilson, big news. Russell Wilson going to the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, of course, has been in the NFL for 10 years, been with the Seattle Seahawks, really the face of that franchise. Took them, winning a Super Bowl with that team. Just really being the dynamic man who really represents that franchise. A lot of us were stunned when we read that he is apparently going to Denver. What do you think of that trade?
It surprised me because I thought if he left Seattle, that was going to be on his terms wanting to leave. And again, he had to sign off because he had a no trade clause. So, I mean, it was on his terms in a way, but I never thought they were going to trade him. I thought, he's going to sign with another team. Now, again, does it put him in another position to maybe compete for another Super Bowl, possibly being in the AFC West, being in Patrick Mahomes' division, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and honestly, the whole AFC? You have so many young quarterbacks in that division too. And I think he clearly has a lot left in him as a quarterback, as an athlete at 33 years old, still competing at a very good level. I know last season, not the season that passed, but the season before that, he was playing at an MVP level. I think he definitely can have more playing time, more play time like that in his career left too. But there was just nothing left. I mean, Seattle has been sabotaged since they lost the Super Bowl to New England. For all the reasons we know, whether they didn't give Marshawn Lynch the ball because the defense did not like, Russell, or whatever the case may be, because you also talking about that, he was the face of that franchise, but also, I mean, that Legion of Boom, that defense too, was their big identity as well too, Richard Sherman and all of them. So there were just a lot of things. So now at this point, I mean, pretty much it's done. That era is done because also Bobby Wagner too. He ended up leaving yesterday too. On top of that, they came in together. They left together. So you still have DK Metcalf, you still have Tyler Lockett, but now they're looking for a quarterback.
I mean, they've been rebuilding, it seems like, for years in Seattle, and he was just still there, and they were rebuilding, or at least they were evolving around him. So it seems like this is the best move. It reminds me of when Peyton Manning went to Denver from Indianapolis, when they were moving on from him and from his Hall of Fame era there. And as you mentioned, Russell Wilson last season, he had 3,000 yards, over 3,000 yards, and 25 touchdowns. Now that was fewer touchdowns than he had had since 2000. I believe it was 2017, but that's still very productive. And I think trades like this can revive somebody like him. I mean, look, after we've seen Tom Brady pretty much play almost till he's 50 years old. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but 33 years old is not old for a quarterback who has pretty much been relatively injury free. Hasn't taken a whole bunch of hits, hadn't been beaten up by like a lot of quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, he did.
He had a finger injury this past season.
Yeah, and a lot of times when I talk about those kind of injuries, I'm talking about the legs, the lower body, concussions. He really hasn't had a lot of those. So I think this is going to be interesting for him. Now, tell me, for you, you grew up in an era when Black quarterbacks were almost common. So tell me, your sense of him as a Black quarterback. Also, just what do you remember of him growing up?
Well, the one thing I'll say about Russell Wilson is, and again, he has athleticism as a Black quarterback. Now, he's not the one thing, and it is smart, though. Sometimes, you get a little disappointed when he does slide as opposed to keep running, but it is smart. But he can use his legs. He can come outside from the other end of the pocket, but he can throw the football, too. He's always been able to throw the football. And again, he's only 5'11". It's like 5'11", 215, 220. So he has some size to him. But no, he's always been able to slide, which is smart. He's always had a great offensive line, has had a run game most of his career. Again, Marshawn Lynch, and then after that too. So all the weapons have been there for him, whether it's to throw the football, use his legs on top of that too. And again, he's one of the few Black quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. But again, if you look at that, one of the reasons he won a Super Bowl is his ability as well as the defense. But yes, he can throw the football, as opposed to, go back to when I was younger, Michael Vick is one of the more exciting players of my generation. Again, number one pick in the 2001 draft. You're talking about the athleticism. Every team, you always had to account for him, game plan for him in terms of being able to run with the football, because that man could throw it. First of all, he could throw it through a car wash and not get the ball wet.
I like that. Love it.
But I mean, you have him, and then of course later on you had Cam, and again, watch Cam 1 year at Auburn, number one pick, Rookie of the Year, most run touchdowns by a rookie quarterback in NFL history. And you're talking about how big Cam is at 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260. And again, winning an MVP, was the best player in the league for a while, but never was the same after they lost the Super Bowl to the Denver Broncos. And then eventually he declined. They let him go. They fired Ron Rivera. He goes to New England for a year and a half. And again, he doesn't fit the actual culture, what the offense they plan to do in New England, what Belichick does. So again, Mac Jones beat him out, which nobody expected him to excel that quick. But I mean, you talk about that. And then again, RG3, another one.
Well, what I love, you're 27 years old. So for you, seeing a Black quarterback is no big deal. And with Russell Wilson going to Denver, I thought it was appropriate bringing a little old school into this. Give the Broncos credit. The Broncos were the franchise that gave Marlon Briscoe the opportunity to be the first Black starting quarterback in the NFL. Not the first Black quarterback. That goes back to Willie Thrower. But in 1968, I believe it was like the fourth game of the season, he stepped in and became a starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. And he has an interesting backstory. When he was in Pee Wee football, he was inspired by Johnny Unitas. He even bought the old school Johnny Unitas boots to wear, and he just wanted to play quarterback. And so when he went to his youth league and the coach asked, the running backs to go over here and the quarterbacks, or go to whatever spot you wanted your position to play, he went to the quarterbacks. And the coach looked over there, because he was living in Omaha, right outside of Omaha, Nebraska. Weren't very many African Americans out there on the field, and the ones who were there all either went to running back or defensive back. He went to the quarterback group, and he kind of looked at the kid and said, "Okay, all right, you can play quarterback." So he started playing quarterback. Clearly demonstrated some skills and abilities there. Went to college. At one point, one season, had to switch to running back when their running back got hurt. He did it, but he said in his mind he remained a quarterback. And when he got drafted, they wouldn't draft him as a quarterback. Denver drafted him in the 14th round as a defensive back. If you look at it in the record books, it says DB. I don't think he'd ever played defensive back before, but that's how wary they were of drafting a black quarterback. But he came in, he played with the quarterbacks, and when there was an injury that season, he was allowed to start, given a new number 15, to be the starting quarterback. And it was a big deal. I mean, it was something that was important to him. Apparently, his teammates embraced him. And I believe later on in his life, he was inducted into the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame just for that role. He didn't stay as a starting quarterback all season long, but he does stand in history, Marlon Briscoe, as the first black starting quarterback in the NFL. So this trade also came right on the heels of news, which may be news and may not be news. Aaron Rodgers reportedly signs a contract. Was it 4 years, $200 million, which would make him the highest paid player in NFL history. I never would have thought that Aaron Rodgers would be in that position, would be able to have that accolade. And I know somewhere Tom Brady must be shaking his head going, maybe I ought to come back and get a little bit of that change. Now, after it was reported, Aaron Rodgers came back and said it was not true, that he hadn't signed a contract. So clearly something is going on there, whether he's put his John Hancock on a piece of paper or not. What do you think of the fact that Aaron Rodgers is now going to be the highest paid player in the NFL?
The Packers did whatever they did to keep him. And I knew when I saw it on ESPN, whatever deal they were going to give him, whatever extension, he was going to stay. There's no way he was going to turn that money down. So even if he's been on the fence or not happy in Green Bay, after they give him more money, there's no way he was going to leave. So they did whatever they did to secure him for a couple more years. And again, he's 38 years old. He's playing at a high level. He's playing at a very high level. He just has to get to the point where he's getting closer to winning another Super Bowl. Do I think he's going to win another Super Bowl? Probably not. And again, I wish the year before that they beat Tampa, so they would have won it as opposed to Brady. But again, hey, it is what it is. But no, definitely deserves the money. I think in terms of a actual talent, though, I think he's definitely one of the best in terms of a talent quarterback position. Obviously, he can throw the football. He's very mobile inside the pocket, too. And again, of course, he didn't start from the jump, had to sit under Brett Favre for a couple of years. But once he came there, he got to that point. You know, it just shot up. And then again, won the Super Bowl in 2009, I believe it was. But he hasn't been back there since then. And again, there have been times where he has been to the NFC Championship and times he has not been there. So I think that's been a lot of criticism, too, for the past couple of years also, too, on top of that, which is why he was unhappy there, too, for the last couple of years. But again, you have the weapons. You have Devontae Adams. They franchise tagged him. You have the running back. You have the offensive line. You have some pieces on the defense. So, I mean, in terms of them being a good football team, a solid team, you have that, though. It's just you just have not won a Super Bowl since 2009. So they, like I said, they can continue to draft players and stuff, and hopefully they get closer back to that point. And again, he's 38 years old. So is he in enough shape to play till he's 42, 45 years old, like Brady or like Drew Brees? The answer is yes. And who knows? Maybe they do get another Super Bowl.
Well, you said it. The Packers did what they had to do. It's hard to start over at quarterback, and they are a good team. They're a team that certainly should be in a discussion for getting to a Super Bowl. But man, $200 million. I mean, that's a lot to do what you got to do, and you got to have people like Patrick Mahomes, even Jalen Hurts. A lot of it's timing for when these guys get these big deals. So the timing was perfect for Aaron Rodgers. Wish him the best of luck, but man, $200 million, that's a big bet to put on your team, you know, a guy being able to take your team to the Super Bowl. And speaking of bets, how about the worst bet in sports history? Calvin Ridley with the Atlanta Falcons admitted that he made a $1,500 bet on the NFL, on an NFL team. For those of you who don't know, athletes are forbidden from betting on their own sport. It is absolutely goes to the integrity of the sport, compromises the sport. When you have players betting on games, that's a deal killer right there. And what happened to him was his season was obliterated. He was suspended for the entire season and lost an $11.1 million contract. What was he thinking about? And I know he said he doesn't have a problem, but if you're putting $1,500 down at risk for $11 million, that's a bit of a problem. So no one said he had a gambling problem. He just did something that broke probably the most, one of the biggest rules in sports. You cannot bet on games in your own sport. What did you think when you saw that Calvin Ridley was suspended for a $1,500 bet?
Definitely needed to be a punishment because, like you said, it's illegal, and he knows that. I think it's something that he tried to do He tried to do it sneaking with, and it just you got caught. And again, I don't know what to tell you. You
I
can't
wonder
do
if he
it.
won the bet. We didn't find out what he bet on. I wonder if he won the bet. Even if he did, he ultimately lost. So just for all you young athletes out there, don't ever put yourself in a position where you compromise the integrity of your sport. Betting is one of those scarlet letters, so to speak, that you get tainted with for the rest of your career. There are people who didn't get into the Hall of Fame for their particular sport because they were accused and some were found guilty of betting on their sport. Pete Rose is the biggest example, who is still carrying around that burden of knowing that he bet on baseball and was suspended and kicked out of baseball, when certainly from a career playing standpoint, he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But because he bet on baseball, he is not. So, Calvin Ridley, we wish you the best of luck. But unfortunately, you're going to have this scarlet letter on your career, if you have a career after this, for a long time. So before we leave the NFL, I know we talked about this a little bit. Why are they still doing the NFL Combine? I mean, I know why they did it in the past. It was a way to get the top players, coaches, front office personnel all in one place, and have them do stuff that they really don't have to do during games, like a long jump, like a vertical jump, just things that supposedly to demonstrate their athleticism. They also interview the players. So, they stand around, they interview them. Of course, this is the media talking to a young athlete. The administrators, the coaches get to talk to the players one-on-one, and those are very helpful. But the NFL Combine, to me, Edwin, has outlived its usefulness. It's become a TV show. They put it on TV. All need programming. So it's a TV show that now they put music on it, etc. But none of the top players go. They all have their own pro days. Most players don't go. Now, it may be good for players who are in those late rounds, players who go to schools where they may not have a pro day. But there's so many pro days now. And as far as the interviews, have these people heard of Zoom? I mean, you don't have to be in the same room with anybody to do interview these days. So, Edwin, I'm anti NFL Combine. What about you?
I know you're anti Combine because a couple of years ago you watched it, and for some reason, which clearly it seems is there, you said, so is the Combine a reality show? And I'm like, where do you come up with that? You posted that on Facebook, and I'm just like, so are we really going to discredit it? Because so you're telling me it was a bigger thing back then in the 80s and 90s, but now when it's televised since 2004, we're sitting up here talk. First of all, every single thing that you do at the Combine, you do in a game. Because guess what? You have to leap forward in a game. Bench press, guess what? As a lineman, offensive, defensive linebacker, you're pushing blocks. You're pushing guys, moving guys against their will. 40-yard dash, no matter what position you are, you need speed. Georgia's big Jordan Davis, 6'6", 341, ran a 4.7. You're really going to sit here and tell me that does not, as a scout, that doesn't make you look at another player even more because of that athleticism and look forward, especially when you have guys coming from smaller schools at that, and even D2, D3 schools. You think that your athleticism and coaches and scouts see that? they're not going to want to possibly take a chance on you, whether it be in the second, third, fourth, or whatever round. Some guys need that extra stuff though too, because yes, you look at film from the season, but at the same time though, to be able to evaluate players at once though, that's a big thing, because first and foremost, Bill Belichick has been at the combine. You know, you've had big coaches there too at that, but we're saying it's a reality show. I'm like, hold on, every single thing you do, you're doing in the game. And then you're running routes, you're catching balls, you're doing drills, footwork drills at every single position, hitting the bag and so forth. So why is that not important? And hold on, big name players don't show up. Every single player is invited to the combine. Big players invited to the combine. Your boy Christian McCaffrey, he was there. Everybody, a pro day doesn't replace a combine. It doesn't, because you have to be there with everybody else. It's not just an individual thing. But
I mean, you mentioned Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, that was a few years ago. My thing right now is that this year it looks as if most of the top players didn't show. So obviously we kind of disagree on this. I wish the players well who go to the combine. I hope that they get an opportunity to elevate themselves and get an opportunity to play on Sundays, which is why almost every young man plays football. But I think one of the best things that happened at the combine, and I wish I could remember his name now, there was a young man who left the facility in Indiana, saw a homeless woman, and gave her some of the clothes, some of the swag that he had been given, because it looked like she didn't have enough clothes, and she had asked for money, and apparently he didn't have any cash on him. But he said, I can't give you money, but I can give you clothes. So whoever this young man was, shout out to him for being humble and for being empathetic, and for giving some of the free swag. He was at a suitcase full of clothes, giving some of that to the woman to help her and her children. So NFL Combine, best of luck to all these young players. Let's move on. We've talked a lot about basketball over the last few weeks, but in the East, we were focused on Milwaukee and Philadelphia, and talked about how we both, I think, kind of agree that they're the teams to beat in the East. And all of a sudden, I looked at the stand and said, wait a minute, Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, they are sitting at the top of the standings in the Eastern Conference. Have I been sleeping on the Heat? Tell me what's going on in Miami, and should we elevate one of them to compete for the Eastern Conference Finals as opposed to Milwaukee or Philadelphia?
You might have been sleeping on them. I have not, because again, they are number one right now. How many number one seeds have not won the championship that year? How many number one seeds have lost in the first round? Which have been a few, maybe not that many, but it's been a few. They're not beating Milwaukee. And is there a slight possibility they could beat Philly? Yes. If they get Brooklyn in the first round, most likely they're going to beat Brooklyn in the first round. Okay, fine. I don't think they're going to beat Milwaukee, although they're back to playing tough basketball defense, and especially, and you need to do that in order to guard Giannis, to contain Giannis at least, because you're not going to stop him. But in terms of Philly, though, too, James Harden plus Joel Embiid, they don't have a certain experience deep in the playoffs? Well, Joel Embiid doesn't, because again, James Harden has been to the Western Conference Finals with Houston. So there's that slight possibility, but I just don't see them though too. That's why I'm not sleeping on them. I'm not sleeping on them. I'm just not, in terms of a conference finals, I'm not putting them there though.
So like it depends. It sounds like it depends on where the brackets shape up and who they face in the conference semis. If it's Miami versus Philly, I mean, that could be a great series, because you got Doc Rivers, who obviously has won a title as coach. You got the Miami Heat, who they've been to the finals, and Jimmy Butler is clearly a great player. So that could be probably one of the best playoff matchups. And you feel that the Heat have a better opportunity to get to the conference finals if they meet the 76ers in the conference semifinals, as opposed to having to meet Milwaukee in the semifinals. If they do that, then that could be a problem for them. So is that what you're basically saying? It just depends on where the brackets fall.
Yes, it depends where the brackets fall, because again, not worried about the first round, but the second round.
Yeah, we're not even thinking about they're gonna get past the first. We're talking about getting down to the final four of the conference, right?
That's what I'm saying. The final four is like they're either going to have Philly or they're going to have to Milwaukee. So that's where they have to. You're going to talk about, okay, is it going to go to a game 5? Is it going to go to a game 6? Because against one of those two teams. I don't think it'll go to a game 7, but 5, 6, and again, do they have better chances with Philly? I think so, as opposed to Milwaukee.
Okay. So before we go, we want to talk about, again, one of the most intriguing, mysterious players over the last couple of years. That's Ben Simmons, who was played for or didn't play for the Philadelphia 76ers for a long time, was traded just a few weeks ago to the Brooklyn Nets, has not yet played, has an injury that he's still rehabbing and recovering from. So it was a big trade when it happened. The Brooklyn Nets, a couple of days after we're doing this, are going to be in Philadelphia for the first time. And what the Nets have said is that Ben Simmons is going to be on the bench for that game. Now, he hadn't been on the bench a lot for them before, particularly on the road. So they're going to bring him to Philadelphia, put him on the bench. James Harden obviously will be dressed for the 76ers. That was the other player in that trade. So James Harden will be playing for the 76ers. Ben Simmons will be on the bench. What is Brooklyn doing? Is this like a mind game they're playing by putting Ben Simmons on the bench?
I think it's a mind game because his mind is still in question. It's been in question because you're going back there. And again, you should know, anybody knows how Philly fans are, whether it's the Sixers, whether it's the Eagles.
They're either the best or the worst, depending on which
end of their fan bases. In terms of tough fan bases, Philly's top 5 with New York. So again, they crucified you off of how you played. You deserved it, and you were not mentally tough to take that. So you're going back there. Is there a possibility that that's going to trigger something in mentally, and that's why they're doing that? Yeah, because he doesn't have any mental toughness, and he just proved that. And it's not just as an athlete; it's as a man too, though. So they didn't want to put him on the court and somehow, some way that distracts him, whatever, because again, he was talking about his mental health too. And I don't want to take that away from him if his mental health has been in jeopardy or something has been up with that. Me personally, he was not talking about mental health when he was getting paid, when he was getting had a contract. He wasn't talking about that. So I still do question that. And it's not to take away from anything when it comes to mental health. That is serious. But at the same time, he was not talking about that before that poor playoff performance.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Mental health, especially for athletes, but for all of us, is something that we should all be mindful of and respectful of. And certainly there have been questions about his mental toughness and really what's going on with what had been going on with him that kept him out so long. And I just really question why Brooklyn is doing this. Why are they putting him on the bench in Philadelphia? You used the word. It could be triggering. I mean, this was a place he's likely going to get booed. Certainly he will get taunted. So I don't get it, Brooklyn. Maybe between the time we're doing this and the time that game occurs, they will have a change of plans and not put him on the bench. But I just don't see the benefit of it to the young man. I don't think it's going to bother Philly at all. It's not going to bother James Harden. It's not going to bother Joel Embiid. It's just a distraction that I think the only person that could not benefit from it is Ben Simmons, and that is unfortunate. So hopefully they will change their mind. All right, Edwyn, another good one. A lot to talk about. Loved this week. Love this session. Love this episode. Want to make sure you have a great day. And for anybody who watches, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching us. You can check us out on YouTube and other streaming services. We're going to be distributing this. And until we see you again, keep balling. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.